Hey all, Scott here from Art of the Genre, and welcome to our blog on Monday. Today we are taking a look at the classic 1982 module N1, Against the Cult of the Reptile God. Is there, is there anything better than that? You know, they have got some classic names. Dwellers of the Forbidden City, I think, is fantastic, just a name alone. But Against the Cult of the Reptile God. I mean, come on, that's just money in the bank right there. But anyway, that's what we're taking a look at today. This is an adventure done by Douglas Niles, who, if you've watched Horror on the Hill, you know he is one of my absolute all-time favorite game designer, authors, you name it, whatever. He did Darkwalker on Moonshade, that trilogy, which introduced me to the Forgotten Realms and probably introduced most people to the Forgotten Realms if you were playing D&D in the 1980s. He introduced me to the world as much as Keith Parkinson introduced me to it, having the boxed cover of the Forgotten Realms set, campaign set. So anyway, I love Douglas's work. I think this is another classic adventure. It is set very much in the same style as Horror on the Hill, and it's very easy to run. It's for characters 1 to 3. It's got a fantastic cover by Timothy Truman. Check it out. Now, Truman is great. I've had some interactions with him over the years. He's a fantastic artist, still doing work, mostly on comics. But he is just wonderful, and he's got some great stories to tell about the TSR art department, the pit, and how people interacted, and so forth and so on. And one of the people that also does artwork within this, in the black and white interiors, is Jim Holloway. But where Tim's work is so hard and edgy and just stylistically different. It's the exact opposite for Jim. Check this one out. See, now Jim's work is something that is always, to me, is going to have a comic derivative to it, meaning it's just whimsical and funny. And that's a lot of the stuff that we see in this. So his artwork next to Tim Truman's, it's just odd. But nevertheless, they're both great artists. So it's nice to have their work in there. There isn't a lot of art in this, really. But nevertheless, I do love it. I think it's got a great cover. And again, a fantastic name, as I've already said. But otherwise, I'll just get right into the meat of it here. I'll take a look at my notes. Again, this is N1, Against the Cult of the Reptile God. I'll grab my notes here. Actually, before I do that, you know, I love Douglas, so let's just give the intro to this because he does such fantastic intros. If you see the intro I did for Horror on the Hill, check it out. I'm just going to give you one paragraph. This is a 3-paragraph intro, but this is just the first one. Terror by night. The village of Orlane is dying. Once a small and thriving community, Orlane has become a maze of locked doors and frightened faces. Strangers are shunned, trade has withered. Rumors flourish, growing wilder with each retelling. Terrified peasants flee their homes, abandoning their farms with no explanation. Others simply disappear. Doug, you kill it every time. Every time out, he kills it. So that's going to give you the basic intro to this module. You are going into kind of a small farmstead community that is on a trade route between two kingdoms. That's the Grand March and the Kingdom of Coland. Those are two kingdoms set in World of Greyhawk. And, you know, World of Greyhawk, to me, just to go on an aside here, it's kind of funny. I started gaming probably somewhere around 81, 82 with the red box, but I really didn't have much experience in it. I was kind of feeling my way through it at the time, and you know how that is. Role-playing is one of those things that you just don't get into yourself. Typically someone else, a club or a friend or somebody gets you into it. And that's what happened to me. And the World of Greyhawk, to me, was always kind of like the older brother to my friend. If you ever had a friend who played D&D or his brother played D&D, you kind of looked up to that older brother who maybe DM'd a couple things, but then moved on to college, and you were kind of left with your buddies doing it yourself. But everything that older brother did was just cooler than everything else you could do. And that's kind of what the World of Greyhawk always was to me. I mean, Forgotten Realms would be my world setting that I kind of grew up with, which was mine. But World of Greyhawk is just different. Did I say Forgotten Realms? Hopefully I did say Forgotten Realms. Anyway, whatever. And so when I read things like the Grand March or the Kingdom of Coland, it just always has a special nostalgia or just more power to it. And you're going to find within this adventure, they're going to have actual block sections of the world of Greyhawk in it that you can take. You can see exactly where things are going on, even from hex to hex. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, the town of Orlane is where this is set. It's a small town, and it does give you access to a map of it, and because a lot of stuff's going to go on. Remember in Whore on the Hill, you have Guido's Fort, but there are no maps. This one is going to have maps. You're going to have this community because the community plays a large role in at least half of this adventure. And that is because a cult has grown up to the Reptile God, which is actually a serpent Naga, who is taking on the godlike role here and has taken over and is continuing to charm members of this community. In so doing, they make these members cultists. So when you look at every description within this, every place you can go inside the town, it'll say, are cultists, and you know that the people in this house or running this business are cultists. They've been charmed and taken over, and it gives the whole thing kind of an eerie sense. You can play it any way you want to. If you're playing it just kind of standard AD&D or marching through it, doesn't have to be anything over the top. One of my suggestions, though, if you're running this, I would run it as classic horror. Anybody who has been charmed by this Naga could have, they've got a secret sign that's in this, but you could have all kinds of other stuff going on here. Creepiness, just the way people look, or a hiss to their way they talk, or give them a green tinge maybe to their lips. Just anything that could kind of set people off, and you could get creepy, and even better who is involved in it, but you can't necessarily prove anything because you're first through third level characters. So there's not a lot to go on here. But you can make it a lot creepier and then have actual people who are deeper in the cult, have even more aspects of the Naga charm or something like that. I would use that, and I would really go for a more horror feel in this one. I think it'll make for a better part of the first section of this, which is investigating the town, trying to find out that there is a cult and where the cult is. There are a couple good NPCs here. There are 2 elves, which if you're playing in a non-humanoid or demi-human world, you could make them even be more regal or something, or something that you don't often see, or you could just have them be standard. But anyway, they're agents of the mayor. They will help the characters out to a certain degree. And then there's a character named Romney the Hermit, who has a pet weasel named Whiskers, and he's kind of your Gandalfian character, who I think he's a 7th level magic user. So he's got a lot of ability to help the characters, but Niles makes sure that he puts in to not have him just kind of run the adventure and just steamroll through, because he's much higher level than everyone else. So keep that in mind. But there are a couple of cool NPCs that will give the characters the ability to solve this riddle, find out that there are cultists. There's also an inn where you can get attacked. That was the picture I showed in the beginning of the comical nature of Holloway. And you could be taken to the Naga and charmed, because members of the party could begin disappearing. So keep that in mind as a DM. If you're looking to split the party, if you're looking to have people go away and then make people sit or eat pizza or do whatever they do while everyone else plays, you could do that. That certainly is something that's set up in here. Not necessarily fun for the person eating, but oh well. And then the end of the onus of this in the first part is the Temple of Merica. I looked this up again. I got this out for reference because I didn't remember any deity called Merica. And the more I said it, the more I started thinking Merica. Which I don't know if Niles is making a play on America or not, but it's kind of funny. Nevertheless, that is the goddess who's worshipped here at the temple. This temple has obviously fallen to the cult, so you'll have to deal with the main high priest. And Douglas has done a very good job with that high priest to kind of set up the way he attacks. He utilizes a coin that he casts silence on and then throws it at the party. and kind of tries to bottleneck them and fight them one-on-one. So it's a good way to do things, and Niles definitely takes a good effect here to do so. Once you clear the town or understand the town, is involved in the running of this, or there is the cult of the Reptile God, and you solve those mysteries, you'll have to go out on kind of a trek. It's a 3-part trek. It takes you through the plains, then through the dim forest, then into the Rushmores, which are a swampy area. And Niles also provides good wandering monsters there and percentile systems on charts. So you've got that. And again, there are a lot of great maps in this too. So everything that you need is going to be mapped. From the temple to the town to the interior dungeons, all great. They're all in here. A lot of them are removable, so you can have them out. Again, very, very, very well set up module. And then when you get to the final dungeons, you're going to run into more cultists, undead here. Troglodytes are going to be down in here, as well as the spirit naga and what is a coffer corpse, which you don't see very many coffer corpses, but that's in here as well, which is kind of cool, and you can play up that undead aspect. And then eventually you will, like I said, find the spirit naga and have to deal with that. And then there's some suggestions at the end of the adventure which tell you other things to get into in the dim forest or something like that. So you have options to continue a campaign here if you wanted to, although it's pretty easy to walk away from this after getting those levels, move on to another good module, or just have your own adventures into it. So keep that in mind. And one of the cool things I found in the back of this, which I always thought was interesting, there's a little paragraph, the very last thing that you'll read in the module, that says if you have any questions, feel free to write them down in a yes or no format or a short answer format and send them into TSR. And then it gives with a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you'll get a reply. That's going back a few years, folks. That's 40 years ago. You could write it out, send it in with your own stamped envelope, and they'll send you back a question if you have anything about this module. Obviously, TSR doesn't even exist anymore, so you can't do that. But anyway, that was kind of cool in here just to take you back on the nostalgia train. But nevertheless, that is Against the Cult of the Reptile God, N1. And this was a suggestion from one of my viewers, so thank you for suggesting this one. It's a great adventure. I highly recommend it. I'm going to give it thumbs up. And otherwise, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, great gaming.